We are delivering life-saving therapies and will produce a vaccine before the end of the year, or maybe even sooner. We will defeat the virus, end the pandemic, and emerge stronger than ever before.
That was President Trump at last night's Republican National Convention. Joining us now with more on vaccine progress, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner. He also serves on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer and as a CNBC contributor. Dr. Gottlieb, always good to see you. Let's sort of do some fact check, because that's sort of what we do nowadays with all of these speeches, whether it be Democratic or Republican. Will we have a vaccine produced by the end of the year?
Well, we have a vaccine produced right now. So the vaccine's being manufactured at risk even before these vaccines win FDA approval. The question is, right, will it be approved? I think that we're going to have the data on the vaccines probably sometime in October is the most likely scenario. And if they're effective in those trials, if they demonstrate that they're safe and effective, you could have a vaccine available, I believe, under an emergency use authorization for select populations before the end of the year. So you could potentially see the FDA authorize use of a vaccine for, let's say, frontline healthcare workers or nursing home patients, people who might be at higher risk of contracting COVID and having a bad outcome. I think in terms of having a vaccine licensed for general use, as we think of getting a flu vaccine, for example, where most people can go get it and it's accessible, widely accessible, I think that's really a 2021 event. I think it's probably the first quarter of 2021, maybe the first half of 2021. But it's probably the case that if they are safe and effective in these large trials, you could potentially get them licensed for general use at some point in the first quarter of 2021.
When you take a look at the timeline of all these emergency use authorizations that have been issued to various tests and potentially vaccines, Dr. Gottlieb, are you concerned that this process at the FDA is getting politicized? You've been there, you've sat in that seat. Is that even a possibility that the White House puts pressure on the FDA to speed it up? I mean, the timing, for instance, of the Abbott Labs test emergency use authorization was given on Wednesday, coincidentally the day before President Trump announced the purchase of a massive amount of tests at the Republican National Convention during his keynote.
Well, I think we're going to have to look back after this event at the emergency use authorization and make sure we have the right guidance and the right guidelines around that process. This is the first time we've really used this process at this kind of scale, where you've literally seen hundreds of products be authorized to come to the market under an emergency use authorization. This was created by the Pandemic All Hazards Preparedness Act to create effectively a lower standard to try to get promising treatments to patients more quickly in the setting of a pandemic. And it's been used, I think, effectively in that way. But the standard is may be effective. So it is a lower standard. It's not that it's safe and effective. It's that it may be effective and it's demonstrated to be safe. And so I think we need to make sure we have proper guidelines around it. And the process for generating these EUAs doesn't go through the same sort of established process of a normal review decision. And so I think it's important, that FDA get in place sort of a good framework around this. And that's probably going to get legislated. Congress is going to come back after the fact probably and change this process and make sure we have tighter controls around how these things go forward. It's not to say they haven't been appropriate to date. It's just that it's less transparent, less rigorous, if you will, and with less strictures around it than a traditional review process.